Innovation, opportunity, and dreaming are all the ways in which the American experience has been described historically and even today. Nonetheless, it is impossible to ignore the dark past that has stained this country's cloth, which still has an impact. The racial divide amongst blacks and whites is well documented, and the Ku Klux Klan perhaps serves as the group who most clearly illustrates just how severe the problems became. The KKK worked tirelessly to continue keeping blacks out of politics and promoting white supremacy. Following changed legislation via the Enforcement Acts passed from 1870 to 1871, many historians would argue that this essentially ended the KKK's reign of terror in the South. Historically, the group was not known for having a clear direction, as chapters sprung merely with the same ideology but no real leaders or direction. Slight changes on how the acts could be enforced came in January of 1883, allowing for the cases that involved the tormenting of black people to be permitted on the basis that only state crimes could be overridden by the 14th Amendment. Historians have long argued that this ruling set the foundation for the second rise of the KKK, of the three and most notable. During the early 1900s, America was still looking to rebuild and entering into an era of peace and progression as income increased. Still during this time, D.W. Griffith's infamous 1950 film, The Birth of a Nation, would inspire many nationwide to resurge the hateful ideologies of the Klan, bringing along new tactics as well. For years, there have been rumors swirling that at its peak, the KKK had over 8 million members that were organized in creating terror once again. By the mid-1920s, reports revealed that some said Klan membership reached 8 million, but the actual number was somewhere between 2.5 and 4 million. In more modern times, the group is not talked about nearly as much until they make front page news. With the current membership being a far cry from its peak, it makes you wonder what happened to those 8 million KKK members. Following the release of the most controversial film of all time, according to many, the fictionalized creation of the KKK was touched on and birthed a new era of Klansmen altogether. Specifics of how this second Klan came to be shortly after the film debuted is mentioned via the Bill of Rights Institute, stating, during the 1920s, cultural conflict and modernization helped resuscitate the Ku Klux Klan, where the original KKK was a violent racist organization born in the post-Civil War South. The modern Klan was driven by somewhat different concerns. Many white, lower middle class, Protestant Americans in the North and Midwest were fearful that immigrants were changing traditional American culture, and they responded with anti-Catholicism and anti-Semitism. This branding of individuals nationwide differed greatly from the first Klan, as did the motivation slightly and means to have a large impact. Larger cities had larger chapters and events to coincide with the growing membership of the group. Another takeaway from the site speaks to just how popular the group was becoming and how to identify its members, stating, some were vocal about advertising not only their businesses but also their KKK membership, giving their business names such as Quick Car Wash, Cars, Country Kitchen. The Klan's small business members included Kansas City haberdasher Harriet Truman. Expressions of membership was something people were proudly in gaining the attention of a future president, along with other high-ranking officials, and society strengthened the movement. Despite its quick rise through improved leadership and stricter rules on membership, there were several damaging incidents to the public perception of the Klan that will cause it to become disbanded. One of the most notable events of this time, angering followers, involved Indiana Grand Dragon David C. Stevenson. Stevenson was a leader within the Klan who was convicted of the rape of a 28-year-old woman in Chicago in April of 1925. The case raised concerns amongst followers around the country. Stevenson would eventually be found guilty of kidnapping, rape, and second-degree murder after the woman died from an infection caused by her injuries. As the Great Depression came and went, and soldiers began returning from World War II, ideals on those who were not Christian and white had changed. The 1960s and beyond marked the most violent era since its inception. Ralph Blumberg, a white broadcaster of 16 years in Louisiana, attempted to bring the community together through a meeting with black leaders and subsequently broadcasting a message to residents that the Civil Rights Act was the law of the land. The Klan's response, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, was that it warned that the civic group would try and convince citizens to integrate with blacks by hiring more of them in your businesses, serving and eating with them in your cafes, and allowing your children to sit by filthy, runny-nosed, raggedy, ugly niggers in your public schools. And Hayes, he's a traitor to the South. Hayes refers to Brooke Hayes, who served as a one-time president of the Southern Baptist Convention. He would end up silenced like Bloomberg. The group, on top of harassing the man, encouraged sponsors to pull support until he had nothing more and was forced to shut down his station. Bombings were often the choice of weapon for the more violent crimes of the Klan. A piece from the Florida Times-Union sheds more light onto this other common acts contributing to falling membership, stating, "The momentum declined, and best estimates place Klan membership at about 40,000 by the mid-60s, the height of the Civil Rights Movement. Klan members were convicted of using murder as a weapon against equality in states including Mississippi and Alabama, where one Klansman remains in prison for planting the bomb that killed 4 black girls in a Birmingham church in 1963. The Mississippi burning murders in just 1964 was an even more mainstream event, as 3 prominent civil rights workers were killed, despite them sadly only being in the area to help more African Americans register to vote. Since the 1950s, acts such as this became common throughout the South, and despite origins of the Klan being that of protesting Christians during the second wave, supporters grew tired of the violence, and even the law was forced to again change in the 1970s and 80s. David Cunningham, who is a historian and the author of Klansville, USA, The Rise and Fall of the Civil Rights Era Ku Klux Klan, attributes the full-on crashing down of this era's movement with a case involving Michael Donald settled finally in 1981. According to the publication, Michael Donald was beaten with his body having been slashed multiple times before being hung. The verdict ended as in an odd twist. Donald's mother wound up with the title to the Klan's headquarters near Tuscaloosa, Alabama, because the group didn't have the money to pay the $7 million judgment award in the Southern Poverty Law Center suit. After this suit in Alabama, the group would again go through a period of gradual decline. Since the beginning of the new millennium, it doesn't appear that we will ever see a Klan uprising again, like we did in the 1920s and 1960s. By 2016, it was noted that the membership prices had risen and that the attitude of the Klan from generations past were gone from a violent standpoint. $165 is spent by many members for the satin robes. However, despite this, there are only thousands of members nationwide according to reports. Reports from leaders of a Clavern, such as Chris Barker, puts membership higher, as he claimed to have nearly 4,000 followers. Nonetheless, the Anti-Defamation League has estimated the true nationwide total to possibly less than 3,000, and with numbers hidden in even events such as the cross burning and chanting being more private, it's hard to prove the numbers being any higher. Still, the Klan has tried their best to spread some form of misinformation for betterment of control. That election denialism has played a role in Klan mainstream relevancy and messaging revolving around the country being lost to undesirables. Former Grand Dragon David Duke's radio show continues to falsely promote that millions of votes were stolen in the 2020 election. What's even more telling is that for the second consecutive year, the Klan has only held 22 documented events, and very little media coverage has come from this. According to many historians, the group has lost its impact due to many feeling that they are simply out of touch with the times today. Propaganda from the group does continue to spread. However, it has been essentially relegated to lesser-known mainstream platforms such as MeWe and the forum known as Stormfront. Researchers have maintained that the group has been dying and that it is only a matter of time before the group's membership numbers revert to some similar to that from 1871 to 1910. Racism and white supremacy may be ideals still held by many in this country, However, the institutional powers allowing violent groups of such nature to exist have lessened greatly. The Klan continues to influence whoever they can, mostly through private online groups. Some would say that the KKK still operates today via the police force, with so many unjustified killings of unarmed black and brown people continuing. The fight for justice seems to be a never-ending battle. People from all nationalities make up the United States today. And while most of the alleged 8 million plus KKK members have passed away, it's saddening to note that the values of that group have lived on without them. Stay up to date for the latest in comedy, culture, sports, and music by subscribing here to our YouTube channel and follow Hype Plus across all social media. And look out for new original content right now at our streaming platform, hypeplustv.com. For Hype Plus News, I'm John Appa.